Shalom.
Shalom.
All praises, honor, and glory unto the Most High Yahweh Basham, Yahushai Basham, Rakakwad, Ashlobul, honors to the elders and the apostles of the great millstone, and salutations to all you sincere Kim. And this is your brother Abawan, back again with another video through the spirit and power of Yahweh Basham, Yahushai Basham, Rakakwad, all praises and glory is due, right? And this is the video that you are seeing on the screen right now is the Elder Apostle Taha's video going into the so-called right Christian genocide in Nigeria. And like he said here, Christians are getting genocided in Nigeria. And hey man, he was right about one thing. Where is Vocab with this smoke to speak about this, right? Where is Vocab's video going into this? Because Vocab will spend all day, right, condemning the Hebrew Israelites, talking about hate group this and hate group that. But when you see something actively happening to your fellow believers, right, rather than focus on building his fellow believers, which are those Wakisaki Christians, all he wants to focus on is, what he's going to say about the Hebrew Israelites and what narrative he can push about the Hebrew Israelites and going into the history of the Hebrew Israelites, bringing out information that, hey, even, the other apostles are even forgotten about that, oh, that actually happened, type of, kind of things, right? But when you actually have a situation that vocab should address, he is nowhere to be found. When you have something going on with plantation Christians, he is nowhere to be found. When it's time to address the situation going on within Christianity, he is nowhere to be found. Okay, so yeah, this is basically the whole Christian persecution thing that's going on here in Nigeria, and I already actually covered this before and done videos on this, right? So I did a video on this going back to when it actually started, because this is just the newest attacks in the same region, and the region, of course, Salakia, is Benue State here in Nigeria. Really, it's in central Nigeria. Okay, so Benue State here in Nigeria, and the cause of this right genocide, or really it's not really a genocide, it's more of a mass killing than anything, right? It's not as though they are being targeted primarily solely because they are Christians, but rather they are being targeted to cause the most amount of chaos as possible. Okay, because don't get me wrong, man, they actually are regular killings of Christians here in Nigeria, but that's mostly concentrated in the Muslim majority part of Nigeria, which is northern Nigeria. Now, Benue State, okay, and let's just get a quick map of Nigeria just so that we can get more understanding of that. Okay, hold on, this is one part of the articles I'm going to go into, right? So let's get a quick map of Nigeria so I can go into that and show you exactly what I'm talking about, right? So here in Nigeria, it's more of Nigeria is a country that has two major religions, which is your plantation Christianity and your Islam, right? So I think this is it right here. It's supposed to be a little bit wider than that, but let's just open image in new tab and see if we can do something with that instead, right? So here it is. Okay, and this is really your Nigerian, and this isn't really a good map. Let me try and get a better map. Okay, so let's use this one. And yeah, basically, Nigeria is separated into these different geopolitical zones they are seeing, right? The northwest zone, northeast, north central, southeast, and south south. That is six geopolitical zones, right? So basically where the attacks took place is in the north central zone, and you can see clearly right under the central zone the state Benue, and this is where the attacks took place. And if you look at the southwest zone, under Ogun State, that's Lagos, that is where I live. Okay, so yeah, this is where the attacks took place. And normally attacks against Christians, right, the Christian genocide that people you see people talking about that's going on in Nigeria is usually within the northwestern zone, right, where you have a lot of these Muslim extremists like your Boko Haram, right? That's the main one actually. This is where they operate, right? But these attacks that are being spoken of, the one done by Boko Haram, they were done by Fulani headsmen, which is a complete and so like I was really laughing, but it just shows you how ridiculous the things here in Nigeria have gotten. But the Fulani headsmen are a completely different group of terrorist groups than actual Boko Haram, which which comprises of quote unquote headsmen, but that's just what we call them, right? So this is going into now. Let's go into this article from Crooks.com. 950 locations in Nigeria's southeast now occupied by jihadist Fulani headsmen, right? So, what they show here is soldiers marching across the street, and really, right, the main places that they're talking about are actually in northern Nigeria, right, where the Muslim majority is. And because northern Nigeria has a Muslim majority, you're going to see a lot of persecution of Christians over there, especially where you have jihadist groups like Boko Haram and then these Fulani headsmen operating there. And basically, what the Fulani headsmen are, just exactly what the name sounds like. Fulani is a tribe here in West Africa, right? It's one of the largest tribal groups here in West Africa, and they are in multiple countries all over West Africa. Now this is where it gets ridiculous because you only really see violent, actions from these Fulanis here in Nigeria, right? Which is why, I suspect that was Boko Haram, right? Because you already saw that with them, the exposing of that the DOG, right? That DOG did with them, USAID, that Boko Haram was being directly funded by the West, right? By USAID in order to perform operations here in Nigeria. And then if you do a little bit more digging, right? Because there's this journalist here in Nigeria, David Hundeyin, that I went to go and dig into it a little bit more. Okay, and he found out that now what was I going to say again? And I can't believe I just lost my train of thought right there. Okay, so yeah, basically what I was saying is that if you do a little bit more digging into that, you then find out that crap, I can't remember what I was going to say. Or basically, the West is funding the terror actions of Boko Haram, right? But like I said, you have Fulanis all over West Africa, from Nigeria all the way to Senegal. You have Fulanis in Mali, you have Fulanis in various parts countries all over West Africa. But you only really see this level of violence from from the Fulanis here in Nigeria. And these Fulani headsmen are just cattle rearers, right? So basically, it's a nomadic tribe you have here in West Africa that just move around, and they usually have cattle with them, right? So basically, cows, like maybe 5, 10, a lot of them sometimes. They even move around here in Lagos as well. Okay, but like I said, and that's basically the two major terror groups you have here in Nigeria, and I 100% believe that those two groups are set up by Esau Edom in order to sow insecurity and destabilization in certain parts of the country, and the parts of the country where they usually do this type of things are parts of the country that usually has rich mineral deposits. Okay, so in order to keep in order to keep those parts of the country insecure, now to make it less habitable for the people that are in those parts of the people that are in those parts of the country, keep it poor and make it easier for them to extract those resources. So what the Fulani herdsmen and Boko Haram do is keep the locals away from the resources. And it's if you really look into the destabilization games that Esau plays here in Africa, man, it gets deep, right? And he uses different tactics, like for example, these extremist jihadist groups. Okay, so you are seeing an increase in violence of these groups because, right, during your good luck Jonathan, Buhari, early Buhari era, that was really when the Fulani herdsmen were going, were committing, were going around, actually attacking people, right? Going into people's farms and attacking them. And if you try to attack their cows or try to chase away their head when they were grazing in your farmland, right, the Fulani herdsmen would attack you. So it got to a point where you had Nigerians in these more rural areas basically have to form up and make vigilante groups in order to try to protect their villages from these Fulani herdsmen, right? Let's read this article. 950 locations in Nigeria's southeast now occupied by jihadist Fulani herdsmen. Let's read this bit. Yaoundé, Cameroon. Although the uprooting of Christians from their lands has historically been an issue for Nigeria's northern states, a fresh report by the Catholic-inspired NGO, the International Security for Civil Liberties and the Rule of Law Inter-Society, right? So, and a lot of these NGOs, quote unquote, that operate in Nigeria, man, look, I'm not going to, the are very untrustworthy. That's why you had this other NGO. I think it was like Africom or something like that. No, that's not what I'm thinking about. This other NGO journalistic organization that basically all they do is just push out fake news about, fake and inflammatory news about what's going on here in Nigeria. So continuing on. The International Society for Civil Liberties and the Rule of Law Inter-Society has revealed jihadist Fulani headsmen are now overrunning Christian communities in the country's southeast, right? And the southeast is basically where you have a lot of Igbos, right? Judah, right? That's actually my original state of origin. That's where my my family comes from, both on my mother and my father's side, right? So you had a lot of instability and insecurity in that region, to the point where some certain days, man, nobody even goes out anymore, right? It's basically a sit at home. Everybody is indoors, okay? You have a lot of security in that area and military operating in that area because of just how insecure it is, okay? Let's keep going. The report indicates that jihadist Fulani headsmen and allied others now occupy at least 950 locations in Nigeria's largely Christian southeastern states of Abia, Enugu, Anambra, and Ebonyi. And really, it's difficult to actually confirm all this. Okay, now the reason I'm bringing this out is just to show you, Jakes, man, that hey, really it's actually more of a in the local news type of situation, to show you, or to ask you rather, what have you gained from plantation Christianity? Because you Christians, you love to do this thing where anybody just comes and criticizes Christianity, right? From criticizing Christianity to actually killing actual plantation Christians. You now begin to say that, oh, it is just what they call it, it's Christian persecution, it's Christian persecution. This is not Christian persecution, okay? Because the vast majority of Fulanis are Hamites, okay, right? And the people that are actually being killed, whether it's the Hausa or the Igbos, right, or the Yoruba even, right, the different places where they go here in Nigeria to kill people and to enact their reign of terror, the majority of those people are Israelites, all right. The reason why these jihadists, Boko Haram, and the Fulani headsmen are going after you is not because you are Christians, but rather it is because you are Israelites, okay? The so called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, the scattered Israelites that are scattered throughout all four corners of the earth, but in this case, especially the so called Negroes, okay? Because this is just a part of the curses. Let's get that. This is just part of the curses, right? Curse shall that be in the city, and curse shall that be in the field. All right. So, these curses shall come and overtake thee. Let's get that. That should be Deuteronomy 28, right? So don't let these plantation Christians, mess with your head and trick you into thinking that, oh, the reason why this is going on with you is because you are into plantation Christianity. No, the reason why you are under, the reason why you are that why this situation is why you know this situation is happening to you, right? And you have these different terrorist organizations running, amok in your villages, is because you are Christians, right? It's like a slip of the tongue, because you are Hebrew Israelites, not because you are Christians. What I meant to say is that it's not because you are Christians, but because you are Hebrew Israelites, right? Let's read this. Let's go into this. Now, Deuteronomy 28, verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy power, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Cursed shall thou be in the city, and cursed shall thou be in the field. Right? And that's basically what you see happening, right? Where while Jake is facing curses, over there in America, Babylon the Great, and other parts of the world, you also have Jake facing curses as well in the villages, right? The rural areas where, hey, basically, you know, it's just just like 100 people just living in a small ass village, and yet they are still being invaded by these heathen, right? By these Hamites, okay? But let's keep going into it. Let's get one more preset. Let's get on that precept. So this is the book of Deuteronomy 28, verse 22. Yahweh shall smite thee with a consumption, and with a fever, and with an inflammation, and with an extreme burning, and with sword, and with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall sue thee until they shall pursue thee until thou perish, right? And basically, what you see in this case is a curse of the sword, right? Which is basically violence and death, which is what is going on right now, in different parts of Nigeria. And really, it has been escalating since the beginning of this year, right? Because prior to this year, you weren't really seeing too much things happening, right? In the vein of Christians getting attacked or villages getting destroyed. Of course, they were, right? But now it is becoming more and more frequent, and this is just like a reminder to our people, especially you Jakes here in Nigeria, man. Because don't think that just because it didn't happen in any part of the country where you live that it cannot come and meet you, right? It just shows there was just seeing things like this happening all the way in South Central, shows you that, hey, hey man, these jihadists or Boko Haram or whatever can get you anywhere you are. So let me get another precept real quick, right? A sword is furbished to make a sore slaughter, because that's exactly what is happening. Ezekiel 21 verse 9. Son of man, prophesy and say, thus saith Yahweh, say, a sword is sharpened and also furbished. It is sharpened to make a sore slaughter. It is furbished that it may glitter. Should we then make mirth? It contaminate the rod of my son as every tree, right? And this is just a part of the curses of our people, right? We have to face the swords, plagues, pestilence, hey, all these things that are written up in the scriptures. And this is how you know that you are an Israelite. This is how we know that we are Israelites, right? Because hey, these Edomite Christians aren't having any of this going among them. As much as they like to cry about victimization and our different countries that are supposed to be Christian are now becoming Muslim, that these Muslims want to come into our land and make Sharia law legal and so on and so forth, right? But that is not the case for them, and the reason why this is happening to you here in Nigeria, the reason why there is it's not a Christian genocide, okay, quote unquote Christian genocide. No, it is it is just a basically a mass killing of Israelites, right? Because if you look at the people that are actually getting put to death, all right, it's not Christians that are being targeted, it is Jake that is being targeted. Kind of like what happened with the Chibok girls, like what that's been like almost 10 years now. Because if I remember correctly, it should be 2015 that happened. So almost 10 years now. Majority of those girls are Muslims, right? They weren't actually Christians, but this is actually something that is being focused on Jake, all right. And you also know that that Esau has a play, right, has a hand in what's going on here in Nigeria, the insecurity, the terrorism, right, all these different groups that are you know invading and burning villages here in Nigeria. So let's keep going. Let's keep going. Or let's continue reading the article. All strategic locations in Igbo land have been saturated by Fulani headsmen with the aid of the Nigerian military, said Nigeria's leading criminologist and head of Intersociety, Emeka Balasi. Right, and even the Nigerian government are unable to do anything about it because, well, let me just leave it at that, because you can already imagine possibly why. So let's get that preset. Let's get that preset, right? Basically their own shepherds pity them not. Let's get that. And this is why during that election period, right, we told this is why during the election period we basically told that this whole thing about voting, right, thinking that voting or putting electing one of these leaders is actually going to do something for you, when really the leaders that are supposed to be put in place are selected. And you saw that blatantly with these current elections that happened in Nigeria, when the amount of corruption and basically what happened during that period, right, the rigging and so on and so forth, was legendary. Okay, it was being done in real time, live and direct, in front of everybody's eyes. And ultimately, what happened? Hey, the people that Esau wanted to be in power got into power, right? You see how Esau be pulling the strings behind the scenes, and not for the betterment of your country, right? Then these same devils now turn around and say, "Oh, look at all the opportunity and chances we gave you." You so-called, of course, they use the byword. They use so-called blacks to improve. You so-called Africans, because even African is a byword. Even Nigerian is a byword, to improve, and you could not do anything with the resource, with the aid that we gave you, and so on and so forth. And that's how Esau operates, man. Want him that giveth his neighbor drink, and then uncover his nakedness, right? That's basically Esau Edom, how he operates, okay? Where he sabotages you, and when you fail, he begins to mock you and pretend that. Alright, so this is the book of Zechariah 11. Hold on, this is the right one. Hold on. Okay, so this is the book of Zechariah 11, and I'll start from verse 4. Thus saith Yahweh my power, feed the flock of the slaughter, whose possessors slay them, and hold themselves not guilty. And they that sell them say, Blessed be Yahweh, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not. Right, so even the Nigerian government is not doing anything to actually, improve the situation, because, hey, it's that's basically what happens. Anyway, let's get this next article. And this is going into what, or the video that the other apostle Taha was going into, right? Suspected headers kill 43 in fresh Benue attacks. Right, like I said, and this is the actual news article that, or rather not the news article, but this is the news report the apostle was going into. Suspected headers kill 43 in fresh Benue attacks, right? Because like I said before, right, there was already an initial attack that I had done a video on previously. I think that was on February or so. So now this is a new attack that took place again in the same region, or I should just say the same state. Okay, so yeah, let's just go into it a little bit. A mobile police officer and 41 people were killed in the Sunday attack. The suspected armed headers stormed Se and Swam, a suburb of Nakatown, around 7 p.m. and shot indiscriminately, leading to a loss of lives. Right, so now you no longer have these Fulani headsmen running around with what they call them again, knives, right? And weapon, basically just knives and blades. Now they're actually using the gun, and it always begs the question, because even the Nigerian military has gone into this before, that whenever they have to deal with these terrorists, right, these terrorists are always well armed and always have supplies that are even far better than what the actual military has, right? So they have vehicles, right? They have all these your purpose military vehicles. They have your obviously the guns, right? They have the RPGs and rocket launchers, and they even have armor and things like that. Basically, just more advanced military equipment than what the actual Nigerian military has. And it's just little things like this that shows you exactly what's going on and who is behind all these things. Okay, so continuing on. A local source in Apa LGA, who simply identified himself as Tony, said that the suspected armed headers invaded Ediku and Kpali community around the same time they attacked Goa West community. Speaking to our correspondent on the phone on Monday, Tony said over 25 persons at Ediku Akpali in APLGA were killed yesterday Sunday, and the corpses will soon be buried. Right, so this is the attack that this is the recent attack that you have of the of the Christian genocide. And like I said, right, going back to what I was saying, just wanted to cover this whole article and just give some background. But the basis of this is that these are the curses affecting our people because we are the Israelites, right? You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, the scattered Israelites that are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, right? This is why the scriptures say that all the nations, that this goes to that in the book of Psalms, the third chapter, right? That they have said, "Come and let's go and get that, let's go and get that." And I think I'll close out with that precept because I have to get a move on right now. Work is calling. Now, Psalm 83, verse 1. Keep not thou, okay, a song or psalm of Asaph. Keep not thou silence, O power, and hold not thy peace, and be not still, O power. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. And this is exactly what's going on, right? It's all in an effort to, and this is all basically what's going on, right? It's not a Christian thing, but rather it's a target that specifically targeting Jake. Okay, let's keep reading. Psalm 83, verse 5. So like verse 5, yeah. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee, the tabernacles of Edom, and the Ishmaelites of Moab, and the Hagarins, Gebal, and Ammon, and Amalek, the Philistines, with the inhabitants of Tyre. Right, so basically, another Tyre represents the Hamites, right? And I believe that Gebal is also, yeah, Tyre represents the Hamites, right? So basically what you see happening is all these different nations that are around about us, right? All these different hidden nations are enemies against us, and you always see the same thing in whatever part of the world where Jake is scattered in, right? The hidden nations that are around about them would always be trying to basically bring them, basically to destroy them, man, right? And the same thing is happening right now as well. Okay, so with that, I'll end the video right there. Once again, all praises, honor, and glory unto the Most High Yahweh Ba'asham Yawashai Ba'asham Raka Kwadash Wa Abad Babal, and through the Spirit of Yakim and Joaquas like edified. Shalom.